Okay, we're live. We're doing it. Right here with Dr. Oliver T. Reid. For those of you who are watching the replay, I want to welcome you to Mani Amandla's Total Life Bonus. I'm thinking about calling this the conversationalist because I have these really amazing conversations with some incredible gems of individuals that I have gotten to know over the years and that I just absolutely have so much admiration for. And for those of you who are showing up, please let us know where you are watching from. While you are all coming on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. You'll see me kind of looking off to the side because we're broadcasting in more than one location. And because we're broadcasting in more than one location, it's important that I just kind of keep looking here and there. So unfortunately, we're not that sophisticated yet where we have like the multi-cameraman where we can kind of turn here and it still looks like I'm looking at the camera. So don't think I'm not paying attention because I am. I'm just kind of looking over here. So I'm about to go here and make this public so that Dr. Reid can share this to his page. And we're going to have an amazing discussion. So here's what I want you to do. While you're waiting for us to do that, which is going to be about 30 seconds, make sure that you share this with your page, because how do we grow? How do we get our messages out? By sharing great content. And that's what we have here for you all tonight. So I'm excited. You excited, Dr. Reid?
I'm excited. I'm ready.
Yay. Awesome. So here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and make this public. So you're going to go to my page. You'll see you and I sitting here talking, and we are going to edit audience and make public. Okay, here we go. We're public. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to quickly read off his bio while he goes and shares this to his group. You're going to absolutely love not only his story, but the amazing things that he's going to be sharing with us tonight because, you know, Dr. Reid is a man who I've known. Gosh, when did we meet actually in person? What was it, in 2011 maybe?
Maybe 2011,
2011, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was around 2011. I got to go and hear him speak, who is a dynamic speaker. He's done some amazing things in the world. And so let me go ahead and read a little bit about Dr. Reid for you all. So he is a multi best-selling award-winning author. Okay, he's a motivational speaker and founder and president of I Am a Solution Consulting firm. Okay, it's a human development organization providing specialized relationship consulting and coaching services. Known as the writing coach, he uses cutting-edge writing and coaching techniques to help entrepreneurs, speakers, coaches, and everyone else who actually needs his help while helping them to live their lives at their highest potential. So in addition to that, he is a creator of the revolutionary interactive card game for singles, which I have a copy of his game, and it is amazing, for singles and couples, called The Inner View. Not interview, the inner view, meaning it's time for you to look inside, right, at yourself. And so within the past 7 years, Dr. Reid has published 20 best-selling books. 20. That's more fingers than I have. I got to do this twice. 20 best-selling books. And he has been, is it the Ayala? Is that how you say that? Ayala. So he has been honored multiple times for his literary work, including the 2016 Ayala Distinction of Excellence Legendary Honoree and the NAACP 2016 and 2017 Black Men Image Award. Congratulations. And he's been featured on Huffington Post, Black Enterprise, ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, and other international media outlets such as with your girl, Mani Amandla, which is, I'm sure, your favorite, right, of all of them.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. First of all, thank you for being here. Is there anything other than what we shared on your bio that you want to tell everyone about yourself?
Just really, from a standpoint of family guy, married, family, and just enjoy helping people. And, just really live out that purpose. That's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, that's been definitely true about you for sure. So, writer's coach, you've done a lot. You've done relationship coaching. We were known as the relationship architect. You've helped people just kind of take their story and their pain and turn it into print, or even if it's their inspiration,
Yeah.
and turn it into print. Talk to us a little bit about what made you become a writer.
Yeah, really, that's a great question. It's one of those things where I was always doing it. I was kind of one of those people that from sixth grade, I remember writing in contests and writing just from the standpoint of just getting my word out. And I didn't really consider myself as a writer. I just kind of was like, I just got some notes down. Back then we had those long, those white pieces of paper with the long lines in them. And I just
Which
kind
I
of,
still use.
you still use those? I do too. I got a yellow long pad of it that I just, tradition. So I started writing then and started speaking then in some oral truffle contests. And it was definitely one of those things that I just kind of it just kind of was a way, I call it my love affair. It's kind of like I just found myself jotting stuff down, piecing things down, always just writing. And then when I got older, I did the whole rap thing as well. And it's just been my thing from poetry.
Did you say you did the rap thing?
Yeah, I had a whole rap group. Rap group. We had a whole demo, and we were the group. Check this out, Money. The group was called High Frequency.
Oh, I like that.
And my rap name was Mystery in high school. So Mystery was my name.
Mystery.
So I had, the Carhartt coat, the Tim boots.
So you were about that life.
Yes. We were headed to be on.
You were on the What Up, Yo?
Yeah, we was headed to Yo TV. What was it? MTV Raps or whatever was popping back then. We were excited. I didn't consider myself a writer until I started to realize I was writing. So it was just something I just did to express my feelings and emotions.
Wow, that's awesome. So awesome. In what ways? So in being a writer, 20 books. So many people can't get to book one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I will speak for myself and say I'm a co-author, right? So I'm a co-author of a book in the Change book series, the fastest growing international book series in the world. Yes. So I'm in volume 6, where I'm with co-authors, but I've not, even though I know that there is so much on the inside of me that I need to pour out, I sit down, I look at my laptop, I'll start off a few sentences, and then I'll scrap the whole thing and say, okay. And I think maybe because I don't know if it's because, an emotional thing, because so many things that I have to say, they're coming from my soul. Right. Yeah. And so it's like that bearing witness to yourself, and that's it's just you and the page. Was that ever an issue for you when you first began writing, or was it more therapeutic?
Yeah, it was an issue for me because it took me 10 years to write my first book. I wrote my first book in 2010, but I have been working on this since 2000, maybe 1999.
Wow.
Not dating myself, but the year I graduated college, I started working on my book, and it took me 10 years because I was starting and stopped. I was doing a lot of speaking, doing whatever, but I got in my head so much that I never finished until 2010.
How did you overcome that? Right. So that's something, and I know some people call it writer's block. Some people say it's just fear. Mm-hmm. What did you do? And because I know that there are other people like myself who've said for a long time, I'm a writer. I need to write. Right. Mm-hmm. When I was in school, writing was so easy, and it was my love. I loved to write, but I wasn't writing about myself. Right. I was writing, stories. Like we did these things in school called personifications, and where you had to find an object and become that object. Right. And so I remember doing my life as a penny, right. And what it must have been like to be a penny and being the only brown, coin amongst all these other coins, and, and what it was like to feel devalued and all that kind of thing. And I remember my teacher feeling like it was just the most brilliant story. Right. Here I am, and this was in, grade school. Here I am as an adult, 46 years old, like, oh my gosh, where do I begin?
Yes.
What do you tell people?
I tell people to get it going, get started. One of the biggest things that I find in coaching people, helping people, because I help entrepreneurs, speakers, and coaches, right, write their books fast, in under 30 days, using my 4-point milk system. So one of the things I do is I just tell them to get started, get out of your head, because the biggest thing is it doesn't have to make sense, like as far as 1, 2, 3. And I know we're very analytical people. Most people who are go-getters, movers and shakers, I know you are a mover and shaker, Monty, and everybody around is just doing tremendous things, great things. But I just tell people, jot it down, right? Jot it down. You can come back to it. I always say that if you start with a word, that word is a part of a sentence. If you can write the sentence, that sentence will turn into a paragraph, right? And then that paragraph then turns into a page. And then that page then transforms into a chapter. And then that chapter then transforms into a book. So a lot of times in our mind, we want to just start from day one writing this book. And I say, hey, it comes from your first time you stroke the pen, or the first time you type into your Mac or your PC, or, I'll teach you other ways and say, hey, maybe it's recording and it's transcription. So there's different ways with today's time that you can record your story and write. So don't overthink it. You can also start with an outline, right? You can start with an outline, but if you only have an outline and you have an idea, put that thing down. I always tell people to write when they're in pain. A lot of my greatest stories have come personally when I went through something.
Wow. Right when you're in pain.
Yes.
So that would be kind of similar to journaling in a way, because I know a lot of people do a lot of journaling. So, but the journaling a lot of times when they're in pain, right? Because I'm going to challenge you a little bit on something. So if they're in pain, what do you think that, people may have a challenge with it with them taking their pain and making it public? And how do you get them to that point, right? Because I know when I journal, I'm journaling some really deep stuff and things that, it's almost like I'm talking to myself. I'm not talking to people, right? And so are you saying more so write as in practice when you're journaling? Or are you saying like really pay attention to the lessons that you're getting from your pain and write that so it can be shared?
Yeah, both. I'll just say, hey, don't overthink it.
Okay.
You can always go back and edit. One of the biggest mistakes that I find people do all the time, they want to write and edit and process. Your raw emotion at that time, a lot of times just put that down. You can work with someone like me, a writing coach that shows you how to dress it up, fix it, repurpose it, brand it. But what you're going through at that time, and not only just the negativity, also the successes, right?
Okay.
I achieved something today, write it down. Don't try to format it. Don't try to make it make sense, but just start to flow with it. Because once you're getting that out of your head onto the pages, then you can move it around, you can dissect it. I like what you said, it could be a journal, it could be a self-help kind of style where you're saying, hey, after I went through this, I processed that. I like to call it like milking the crisis or milk process, right? A lot of times you know this because you're definitely a medicine woman, modern day medicine woman. You do a lot of herbal things. But when you look at milk, for example, milk, I did some research on it, which is how I came up with the whole system I do. Sometimes it takes them, I think, 72 hours before that milk will leave the farm, because it's testing it has to go through. It's a process to get the milk out of the cow, even with machinery. And then they take it somewhere else for it to be tested again. So I want you to look at the writing from that standpoint, get it out. You can always milk it. But sometimes you lose the power and the passion of that moment. A lot of times when I'm really going through something, I really caught something, or a light bulb moment comes up, or I lost a loved one, or whatever it is, a real raw emotion that you can just capture by putting it down. Like I said, you can record it, you can write it down, and then you can structure it after you do that.
Interesting. Out of the books that you wrote, right, you've written 20. That's a lot of books, right? Yeah. Being honored, for them. I've seen the images at the award ceremonies. It was dynamic, looking at how many people appreciated your literary work. With that being said, which of your books was the most difficult to write?
Yeah, I always say this, and shameless plug, but it's the book that I'm writing now. So I'm always working on something, working on like several different books, and I kind of try to practice what I tell people to do. But my biggest one so far was Words from the Low Place. It was an anthology that I did where I took about 9 other authors that didn't even know each other. I had written a book, I had gotten halfway completed, right? And I'll throw this out there for people watching. You don't have to do it by yourself, telling your story. You can actually grab some other authors, like the book you mentioned, the one that you're in, a powerful book, has allowed you to travel across continents, just being a part of a collaboration. So I tell people all the time, I did an anthology. It was my first anthology that I did. I took 9 different people, some from Africa, some from the States. They were a little bit everywhere. And I got halfway through the book. And this book was so hard because I was sharing my story for the first time. For example, my bout with suicide, some different things that I wasn't 100% comfortable with sharing before. I put that in the book, and when I got halfway through, I felt led in my heart just to say, this book is not just for me. I need to include some other people's phenomenal stories in it. And so I got halfway finished with the book, reached out to about 10 authors, didn't charge them a thing. It wasn't a business strategy. I just needed their content. And they wrote the story, and I weaved their story in with my story. So it's a phenomenal way of doing it. But I talk about rejection. I talk about real issues that I faced. And I think that was the hardest one to just, and I get that fear writing. It was kind of like, do I tell, and how much do I tell, and do I tell too much?
That's such a good point. And let's go there, right? Because I think you went to a really, really interesting place, because so many people have had these, I hope you can hear me okay. I got the microphone needs to kind of come over a little bit more. So many people have had these types of things happen, whether it's anxiety, whether it's suicidal thoughts, whether it's depression, having to start all over again, right? When you did that, when you shared your story, when did you decide which was enough, which was too much? Because I know you're in the ministry too, right? Was it more so of a spiritual thing that you were, waiting for, direction to say, okay, this is what I say, about this, right? Or did you just say, you know what, I need to get it out? Because, because I think it's important to kind of share what kind of things that people, because, where to begin? People say, well, I've had this happen. I've had that happen. Where do I start?
Yeah, I had to do the dance. What I try to tell my clients now, had to do the dance with the balance of the rhythm, because I've read some books, I'm sure you have, where it was all about this pain to where it's almost like so deep and so heavy. So I had to kind of find the balance. And I just got to a point where I say, I'm tired of holding all of this inside. And I also use this terminology that I use called, you don't have to finish to be finished. You don't have to finish to be finished. What I mean by that is, I just put out enough. My story is still going, right? So I was like, I don't have to give them everything right now, but I edited a lot of stuff out of the book, because I was kind of like, this is too deep, this is too heavy. It brought up a lot of raw emotion too. It was kind of like, I found myself getting upset, like that 5-year little boy that was rejected, right? I found myself at high moments and low moments. But what I tried to do after I'd written it down, I just dumped it. Then I started to weave out, let me say this for book 2 or volume 3. Or, so what I did is just kind of had this balance, and I encourage everybody to do. And then I also had to go back through and scale, how did it fit my content? How did my content fit the chapter? That I was trying to do. So that's another thing, get it in and out, but then how do I make this end on a high note? How does it sync with my point, my main topic or my main idea? So it was this dance that you have to do. I always call that balance of both worlds.
How did you make the decision? Because you got really well known for, the insight that you would give women about men, the insight that you would give men about themselves, the insight that you would give couples about how to relate better. How did you make the transition, or make the decision to make the transition from moving from, helping people with their relationships and their relating, to now moving into being the writer's coach?
Man, it was a struggle. And you probably followed me since 2011. I've had 7 changes, or I won't say 7, at least 3 major changes where I was like, And it really was when I really started to sit down and really talk to my coach, and they were like, hey, because I used to think I had to give up something by defining myself as something. But I kind of went back to say, what have I been doing for a very long time that I'm passionate about? And just now, like, for example, me changing to the writing coach, I still do relationship talks. I still write books about relationships. So I had to find out writing was something that I was passionate about in all these things. Anytime I moved to a different brand, or rebrand, or focus on anything, I wrote a book about it. I talked about it. Whether, like I said, good, bad, ugly, I wrote a book about it. So I was able to move through that transition to realize that I am my brand finally, embracing that. Sometimes as a culture, we think we have to have all this fluffy, shiny, great names. But at the end of the day, it still came back to me writing and me inspiring and me, I always say writing is speaking. So even when I'm speaking, I'm writing. I write on the canvas of people's ears when I speak, or the heart, if I pull into the heartstrings, or whatever I say that may be wisdom moment. And I started when it was kind of like, I'm sure you've been there, it was kind of like an epiphany came, like, I am Dr. Oliver Reid. I'm the writing coach because that's what I was doing in the background too. I've helped, not only have I written books, we've helped hundreds of people write their book and publish their book, through workshops and classes. So it's kind of like me settling in, Monty, and was like, light bulb came on. This is who I am. I may do all these other things, but what I ended up doing in my greatest passion is to write literary works. And it helped me transition to where I am now. And I didn't have to give up everything. I've gotten so many opportunities to still speak on relationships now than when I was like, trying to really push those things, or even from your solution coach, just what was that, right? I had to figure out how to narrow it down and niche it down. And when that light bulb came on, it was like, I begin to accelerate. This is my purpose. This is what I do best. And this is what I love to do.
Awesome. So I want to take you deep. Are you ready to go a little bit deeper?
Let's go.
All right. So the emotion of a story. Everybody has a story. Take us through, because and you and I have known each other, like we said, for a long time.
Yeah.
Take us. My bad, y'all. Sorry. I thought I had the D&D on. Take us through, because you've had some tough things happen, right? What types of things have you not had the courage to write about yet?
Yeah. I think a lot of, working on something in the background, but really, I touched on it, but really digging with the rejection, for example, that I really experienced from my father.
So sorry.
That was the problem. I think that was one of the challenges that I'm really dealing with unfolding. I hit a little bit on, but how that impacted me as a man. Deeper than how did it impact me as a father? How did it impact me as a husband?
In what ways do you think that it did? Let's talk about that. In what ways do you think that it did?
I think my relationship, because of the abandonment that I received as a son, I imploded. I imploded that. So, for example, I carried that burden, that anger, that rage into to while I let it go now, but it's still impactful. Where I had to say, "Hey, I'm not responsible for what had happened prior. I can start a new narrative now." And you don't have to continue to live in the shadows of that brokenness, because whether we know it or not, sometimes we still things attach themselves to us.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
In what way things attach themselves to us? Like
indirectly. For example, like you may not feel like you're angry, and I'll give you a scenario. Like I remember, having to be confronted with having to face forgiving my father, which I'm glad I did. My father was murdered in 2010, which is very deep. But we were estranged for a long time. And one of the powerful things that I remember is when it all came up again to have to deal with it, I thought I was over it. Until I was faced with it.
So good. Yeah.
So that was one of the things. It was a rude awakening. I found myself like back in, like I said, a 5-year-old waiting at the window for him to come. I felt and I'm like, I'm 30 something at that time. I'm 34, and I'm like, I have to confront this. And why does it hurt so bad when I thought I was over it? Because from a standpoint of religion, and from the standpoint of thinking I'm over that, I forgave him, until I had to actually deal with it. So that's one of the areas that like, I'm not as over this as I thought I was.
That's interesting, because I remember that. I'm glad you brought up, from the standpoint of religion and things too, because I know, I remember the times, I would go to church and, you release it, you give it all to God, right? And you're done with it. Are you tea-twinning? Are you tea-twinning with me? Or is that coffee?
You know what? It's a little tea, a little water. It could be anything. It's a mystery inside.
You see, you had the copy. And by the way, y'all look.
I see you. I see you. That's amazing. Love the branding. I love that logo.
Love beautiful, beautiful birthday gift I got. So with that being said, right, we talked, in church, I remember what it was like, to go and leave it. And then all of a sudden something happens, triggered, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're like, well, maybe I didn't forgive. Maybe I didn't, or maybe I'm not finished with that. Maybe it does still hurt, right? And so I think that when you talk about that, especially when people are trying to write, in what ways have you found writing to be therapeutic in nature, when you're still processing? Because I know a lot of people think, well, I have to be over this before I do that, or I have to be an expert at this before I can, do A, B, or C. You see what I'm saying?
I love it, because one of the things that I did, and some people will say that it was prophetic or in foresight, but I didn't know, is that I wrote a poem, Monty, before I had even came into the realm of forgiving my dad, or before we even reconciled. And that poem started off very accusatory, but then the way the poem ended was, I forgive you and I understand. So what happened is, that was my way. And when I was saying earlier, just dumping it, I dumped that. I would say it had to be about 10 to 15 years before me and my dad reconciled. I wrote this poem. It was called X-Man. And X-Man was my internal pain of saying, I divorced my dad. Basically, you're the ex to me, right? But I forgive you, and I want to move forward, on. So it was kind of like I said, this is how I'm going to pour into my whole poetry, my pain. One day I just had a moment, and I was like, man, when I was young, I crawled to you. When I could speak, I called for you, but you were never there, man. Always a here and everywhere, man. So I labeled you my X-Man. There's no pain like living in the day-to-day prison, bleeding from the daily incision of helpless rejection. Parked at life's intersection, parallel across the street from nowhere, on the corner of neglect. But I'll show you respect, because I know your old man put the X on you, man. But thanks to the son of man who took my X, tilted it to the side, now I'm a free man. So you get the point. So the poem goes on.
I want you to keep going. I'm like so into it. And I'm finding myself tearing up. I'm like, oh, that's so good.
Yeah. And so I began to use it. So now I'm a free man, lacking nothing, wanting man. Now I recite in the ears of my young man that X marks the spot of God's eternal plan. So at the end of the day, this was before I reconciled. I realized my dad had issues that impacted me, but it was because other things had impacted him. And so I had forgiven him in my writing before it kind of came out in the manifestation of the actual event. That's the power of writing. You can journal. They call it affirmations. I love your affirmations. You always speak positive affirmations on your social media. I always say that. I teach people how to, for example, be a book instead of just writing a book.
Oh, what a statement. What a statement. Okay, what a statement. So let's unpack it. I see Robin is saying, I'm relating, Dr. Oliver. I see Dr. Angie Eugene is saying, wow. And she's talking about, the generational curses of, that one father not being there for another father, and then just it perpetuating a thing, but then it stopped really with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Be a book. Mm-hmm. Don't just write a book.
Don't just write.
What do you mean by that?
If you don't connect with your story, I've talked to a lot of people who write these books, but it doesn't really speak volumes. I like to say you don't have your secret sauce on it. You don't have that sauce. You don't have that relatability to your book. And so I always teach people, don't write a book, become a book. Let people in the chapters, take the reader on a journey with you. And so what I've done, and you see me all the time on social media, I kind of, to a point, put some of my business out there because it's freeing for me. It also builds courage in other individuals. So become a book, and not just trying to sell your book. When you become a book, you connect with your audience. And so I let people inside. I know that my book is not for everybody, but I write it anyway. Right? To those who are fearful, like, I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know if it's going to be, effective. Somebody will connect. Somebody will connect from around the world. Some of the books I've written allowed me to be in 4 continents. They didn't know anything about me, but they got a book. They saw a video. It connected with them. And then here I am, overseas at a conference in South America because they identify with my story. So you never know what's in the inside of you. So be a book. Let your life be the pages.
Be a book and let your life be the pages.
Yeah.
I'm in love with that. That's really good. And I'm asking you these questions. Really, I know we have people that are watching, but I'm being very selfish and asking these questions because these are questions that I'm having,
Yeah.
right? And I know that we had talked before, and I think I read to you, the page,
Yeah.
part of what I wrote in the Change book series. And it was called No More Hiding. And I remember even as I was reading it to you, it was hard not to connect to it, like not to read it without tearing up and choking up because I'm like living,
Yeah.
back in a moment of it. And so I totally understand what you're saying when you're like, let your life be the pages,
Yeah.
right? And so that's really, really, really good, taking people on a journey with you, because none of us are supposed to do this alone. We're not meant to, right? But a lot of times, like you said, we internalize, and then we eventually implode and explode
Yeah.
because we haven't processed,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm by no means saying that if you're going through, or if you're having pain or whatever, I just want to make sure this disclaimer, not by any means saying that this is a replacement when I'm talking about therapeutic,
Exactly.
not a replacement for therapy, right? But it is a therapeutic thing to do, to get it out, to get it down on paper. And I mean, you're sharing, that was a powerful, powerful poem. And have you put that in a book yet?
Yes, it's in a book, and it's in several of my books. And one of the things I tell people, you can repurpose this information. Once you write it, you can repurpose it for other stories. But each time I use that poem, I use it in a different way for a different audience. I've said this in front of single mothers. I've shared this in front of fathers. I've shared this in front of children. So I've written it in books, and I change it, and it's a living, in the audience that listens to it. It means something totally different on the stage of the listener.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because for me, I totally connected with it, but, it wasn't my father, right? It was, my mother that I don't have, didn't
Right.
have that, that level of connection with, and that to that degree, right? So I understand. I think that's why it was kind of making me feel like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry, stop,
Yeah.
I wanted to hear more, but I want to, you know what I mean?
And I feel it every time I share that. I feel it in my heart, and that's why I say, because it's a part of, going back to my point of you being authentic. And one of the things I teach people too is being organic. We always look at organic as the food we eat, but in writing, imagery, being organic, because you got people that will read your book, for example, who they're kinesthetic. They want to feel it. They want to fill those pages. And so, one of the biggest things that I do is, okay, yeah, organic in the food, but be organic in your writing. Let that true passion and feeling come through, because people can feel on the other side if it's fake, or if it's something that you're just, they can feel in your writing what you go through.
I find it easier to take my feelings and put them on Facebook.
Yeah.
Why I find that easier, I don't know. I don't know. It's just, it's like, it's right there. It's, it's not ready for somebody to purchase. Do you consider that a block? Because I can write out my feelings there pretty easily. You know what I mean? I can tell stories about what happened with my children. I can tell, because it's fresh. It's right there. You know what I mean? Right in the moment. So is that similar to what you're saying? Because I can do it right then.
Yeah.
Right. And so instead of taking it to Facebook, take it to the tablet.
Yeah, and do both. I've actually just there's a journal that I did back in, I think, 2011, called Spiritual GPS: God Promised Solutions. Right. Well, people didn't know, I repurposed that content, and I'll show people how to do that. I'm gonna give you a freebie on here for those who watch. You can dump it on Facebook, but then also cut and paste it and put it in your Word document. This is your true emotions, whatever. I love social media because it is a good outlet, a good way, but you can repurpose that content. So for 30 days, I was just venting. I remember that 30 days, and I took those 30 posts and I put it in the 30-day journal, right? So basically, you could streamline, still do both, and repurpose that material, because most people don't forget anyway. And then bottle it up and then take it to another level. You can do it.
Wow. So in your coaching, because I know you were going around, you were traveling. Do you still have your same partner?
Yes. I have my brother, my partner, Kelly Cole, who's a publisher. He does the publishing side of it, and I'm the writing coach. I ghostwrite. I actually work to help you get the story out of your head onto the paper, and then he publishes it. But we have these masterminds all over the country that we've been doing before the pandemic. So we're about to come out and do a new one now, virtual. So we're
Yeah, I
just
remember you were traveling all over and doing these workshops and masterminds and packing it out for people who were ready to get their stories and ready to tell their stories. And I think this is probably a really, really, really good time for people to do that, especially, you know, like you brought up the pandemic,
yeah,
you know, when people are having a lot more quiet time. Maybe some of their lives aren't as busy where they're able to just kind of go on here and just, like you said, just dump out the raw emotion, you know, and then also being quiet enough to really reflect, you know, what am I learning? You know, what am I now valuing? You know, I know so many people now are having much more value on family, saying the things
yeah,
that need to be said, appreciating each other more, not wasting time, because we saw so many people and we're still seeing so many people get ill. Some of them aren't making it,
yeah,
unfortunately. And, you know, and so we're like, so many people are now seizing the moment, seizing the opportunity. And so if they were to come to you as a writer's coach,
yeah.
what is that process? What all do they get as, because you mentioned Kelly, your partner that does the publishing, what all do they get as a part of that?
Yeah, one of the biggest things is the opportunity to actually. I tried to become what I needed in 2010 or before 2010. I needed somebody to make this simple and easy, a system, a proven track record. I would say somebody who has actually done it. Right. I'm not saying anything I haven't done. Like I got 3 or 4 books in the oven right now that I'm working on while I'm doing all these other things. So showing you how to cut your time in thirds or half, however you want to look at it, and create a system. So I'll teach you how to overcome those fears of writing. I'll take you through a 4-week mastermind or a 4-week e-course that I'm working on. Right. So now it's an e-course where, hey, you just can plug and play and do whatever. Giving you the formula that I've used so that I've written about, I say since 2010, probably 2 to 3 books a year, even wrote in COVID, right? I looked around and said, hey,
Wow.
why not write a children's book? You know, and, you know, just started thinking and brainstorming off a podcast idea was like, hey, I need to write a children's book about COVID. So I like what you said. There's content all around you right now. There's content. So I help people focus on what the story is inside of them. Because sometimes if you can look outside, going back to what I said earlier, I was becoming all these things because I'm a creative. The creators, we do that. But then I realized, man, why am I looking so hard for something that was inside of me already? And I said it on a recent podcast. I'll say it here. When you find yourself, other people will find you.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
finding
Ooh,
myself.
that's good. That almost slipped past me. that one almost slipped past me. That
Yeah. When you find yourself, other people will find you. And it starts
maybe
to attract.
that's what's happening to me. Because I finally,
You're everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Because like you're in your vein. You know, I followed you for years and saw when you started out in one place, you're in another place. And some people don't want to change, but a lot of times that change is for the best. That change is when you really start saying, okay, you know, don't be afraid to miss it. So I'll teach people in that too. Don't be afraid to miss it. I'll help you narrow down your messaging. You know, like, because I get people all the time, especially if you know, I'm very succinct. I market towards, I focus on entrepreneurs, speakers, and coaches. Why? Because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a speaker and a coach. And I know how we get busy serving and doing. And, you know, a lot of times our messaging is all over the place. So I help people develop the messaging, how to implement it, link it all together, and then get a knowledge of their book. So that's what you'll get with me, a knowledge of your book. So you're not just out here just trying to sell book, you know your book. Because I see people on show, television, radio, I work with authors. A lot of times you say, what's your book about? And they can't tell you in 30 seconds. So we work on doing that as well.
Wow. That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. I'm seeing a wow. I'm seeing Chema in Costa Rica saying hello. So as we talked about, you know, global, right? That's my guy, Chema. I want to introduce you guys as well. So when you're doing all of this, right? The publishing side, I get the part that you do. Then you move them, you know, into the publishing, the marketing, because again, you wrote the book. Now what?
Yep, we move them. One of the things we have a partnership with a Publishing Advantage Group, which is Kelly Cole. I call him the publisher, right? He is amazing, a marketing guru. I move you when you finish from me. You're print ready. You're ready to go. Like you have your manuscript developed. You know your book. Then we pass you on the Publishing Advantage Group, And we say, hey, they take it from there. The whole editing team, the staff. As you know, I always get leery of people who say they can do everything. You know, you have the people like, I publish and I write and coach and I do it. I stay in my lane. When you go there, we have a team of editors that will design it from the cover to the back to the inside to, you know, whatever it is. And you get a marketing plan. So you get a lot of different things and a one-on-one call strategy. It's so many different things that you get of proving effective, simple, I would say simple ways to do it. So then you're print ready when you go from me, and then you get the marketing steps, you get the strategy calls, you get so many other bonuses working with the season. You look at Puzzles Advantage Group or the way we do it, it's almost like a vanity publishing. So from that standpoint, you keep the royalties, you keep the rights, but you have the look and feel of a traditional publisher, but you're still able to manage your own stuff in the background and keep your royalty and keep your influence, and don't have to say, oh man, I have to give this up to fit into this mold. You're still able to be in charge of your project after. So that's the benefit of what we do for our authors.
That's very awesome. Very, 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 very awesome. So when a person does that, they go to you, they get coached, they get it out, they have editors, that all the way down to print sales, and then you give them the marketing plan.
Yes, they get the marketing plan out of the door, and they're ready to go. They're ready to go with it, and then we don't just leave you there. We're always doing something. You got podcasts. We're always checking on our authors, checking on our clients to make sure that they are reaching the pinnacle and becoming a bestseller. And that's the thing. We want you to experience the joy of becoming a bestseller and being able to reproduce yourself time and time again.
I remember you once said that a book is like the new business card. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, that was a quote that came from my brother, Kelly Cole. He said it so powerfully. He said, think about it. When you're in business, again, going back to my succinct people I'm talking to, I'll help anybody. But what I'm looking at is people who are out in the forefront, who are business owners, coaches, whatever. At the end of the day, we're in settings, pre-pandemic, where we're giving out our business cards, we're doing whatever. End of the day, people are throwing the business cards in the trash for the most part. Or if you can't remember, I'm sure you've been at an event like, I put that card somewhere. I can't figure out where I put that card. But with a book, most people will never throw a book away. You'll give it away. It'll sit on your shelf. I got books that I haven't even read yet that's in my library. So if you are able to do a book, then people will hold on to that book. Say you're a real estate agent. What's good about that, you can actually use that book to send out to your clients. The number one best lead in to marketing right now is a book. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are giving those things away. As you give it away, guess what? I'm not going to throw away Monty's book. And one day I may not need it right then, but say somebody else comes over and say, hey, what's that book? And look, and they open it up. And next thing you know, they're leading into your program, they're leading into whatever that you're offering. And so I said, if you don't have a book and you're a speaker, you're a coach, entrepreneur, you're not only leaving money on the table, and it's not about money. I saw you doing some phenomenal things a couple of years ago with Steve Harvey and some great other people. It's about the connectivity, the opportunity, the doors that open, not so much the cash, but the doors of influence that open when you have a book. When you have a book, you're also money branded as an expert in your field. So when people start to Google and search you have a book. So if you're not, positioning yourself to have a book, you're leaving an opportunity if you're a speaker, entrepreneur, or coach on the table. It's a lead generator. Yeah.
That's really, really, really good. So what would be, we've got probably a few minutes left here, your message to, because that's really good from the entrepreneur, the speaker, and the coach, because some of them have books, some of them do not, right? Yeah. What is your, because you talked about the lead generation, because we already know about how important your list is, right? It's everything. It's the key to your, to your wealth, essentially. I saw someone say, show me your list and you're showing me your bank account, essentially. This kind of like the algorithm of knowing like how many people are on your list will kind of determine how many people you can market to, and so on and so forth, right? And so with becoming an author, which I want to connect with you all too, because I think you'll take some of the heavy lifting off of me and help it be a
we got you. You know that.
Yeah, I know. That's where I appreciate you. So with that being said, I think that, a lot of people really kind of, have missed, that huge opportunity for accelerating their growth in business, due to kind of like being like me, having it all in your head, but needing to put it down on paper.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the greatest things that I do within this 4-point or 4-step note writing process. Is I simplify it into those 4 steps. Going back to messages implementation, linking it all together, and knowing your book. But I also know that people's time is so valuable. So when I plug you into a system, the biggest thing about that I had to learn was the system is it. You talk about the list, but the system as a writer, once you got a system, you're able to crank those things out left and right because you're doing things in half the time because you now have a system that's working for you. You know, if you look at McDonald's, you look at whatever. One of the biggest things that I always say, you know, Ruth Chris is not worried about McDonald's. Why? And McDonald's is not worrying about Ruth Chris because they all have their secret sauce. They all have their secret system.
Right.
And so what I'm doing is say, let me get your system. At the end of the day, you have your own flavor on it. And so that's what we do in talking. So it's one of those things, once you dump it in, we're able to move it out and get it going. So I always say every coach need a coach, and I have a coach, and I'm learning that to be so true. You coach many, and you coach me every day. When I go and look at your posts, that's another thing. All the content that we're pouring out on social media, I gotta give you a tip. Repurpose that information.
So what's so cool about that, and I wish I had it in front of me, I got sent an amazing gift today, and it was a book, and the book was it was filled with images of all the posts of, you know, of the new post today. Got sent that from Costa Rica, and it was so beautiful. I'm just like, oh my God, I love it. So but that's true. It was a repurposing, right? Yeah. You know, and seeing, you know, like the little things I say, because I like to tell people like, you've got this, you do, right? And so then on the front of it, it said, you got this, you do, right? Just paying attention to the things that, you know, that we say, and being able, like you said, to, you know, have, I think what Brendan Burchard calls content proliferation, where you're like repurposing it and you're kind of putting it everywhere. Yeah.
It is, because once you do that, I would say nothing wasted, recycle it. I'm talking to people who are watching now, you threw some stuff away, never throw your writing away. That's what goes back to what I was saying earlier. Dump it all out. You know, just dump it all out. You can sort it later, but if you don't have that content, if you don't have, you know, some people threw content away, and I'm like, why do you throw it away? And I remember one time, I think it was Michael Jackson, they talked about Elvis Presley, how they wrote so much content, and I think Tupac was the same way, that's why they can come out years later, because they wrote so much content that they can just continue to pump out. So you can actually, once you put it down and repurpose it, rebrand it, reuse it, nothing wasted. Recycle, man. That's what I'm saying. Recycle. Go get it.
Absolutely. What's your final message that you want to leave with everyone, and tell them how they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, I would say, man, my final message is, you have a legacy, and you have a story. Going back to that secret sauce, you know, don't feel, even if you're not an entrepreneur yet, if you're not a business person, you just write it. Don't just overlook your story, because mine, for a long time, I started to think, well, maybe everybody's talking about that. I don't have a story, but you have a story. You know, you have a tribe. You have people that are waiting on you. We hear so cliche, but it's true. There's some people who are waiting to hear your story. Write it out. And then, you know, get it done. Start somewhere. And I think my biggest thing is, you have a story in you. You know, you are a book. And I said it earlier, you are a book. Don't just look at writing a book. What is it that you want to leave a legacy? And one of the things I learned about a book, that it never gets old. You can always reuse it. You can always repurpose it. And so for me, man, you can reach me at www.milkwritingsystem.com. You can Google me at Dr. Oliver Reid, but you want those free tips? I'm doing something crazy right now. I'm giving you free tips. All you got to do is go to www.milkwritingsystem.com. If you're saying, hey, I need some tips to get going, I have a whole informational free little tidbit class for you to take real quick. So go ahead and check it out.
So they don't need to wait until they've gotten it, you know, pretty much all written and ready for editing before they reach out to you. They can reach out to you from start, from idea, from concept.
Yeah. I've had people who have their whole, you know, 100, 200 page manuscript done. By the time we get due, they're reshuffling it. I've had people who come with nothing, and we sit down and boom. I teach you other ways to get it out. So however you come, you know, come and let's get it done. Doesn't matter.
Awesome. Well, this has been Wonderful, wonderful. So Milk Writing System, MILK,
Am I okay?
milkwritingsystem.com. And head on over there, get your freebies. Contact Dr. Oliver T. Reid. He is wonderful and very, very helpful to you. I can guarantee you that. I think that a lot of people really wanted to know how to begin, and they're ready, right? And this is a good time. Like right now, it being in Ohio, we are snowed in, right? We're not.
Same here, Virginia.
We are absolutely snowed in for the most part. It was believe it or not, the kids are not in school. They're on online school and they had a snow day anyway, right?
Wow.
I think because some of the teachers must have gone into the building, but nevertheless, it's a good time to be able to get, within ourselves and to put it down on paper and get it to print. I know so many incredible people who I'll be sending your way. So I hope that you are ready to be able to handle all of that, because I know some people who really are, they're ready, and they have amazing stories and the world needs to hear them. And so that begins also with you. So with that being said, I want you all to head on over to ManiaMandla.com. Get on our list. And so you'll be always up to date on the latest and greatest that is to come. And also to YouTube, subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you do that. And then of course, give your girl here a like on Facebook, right? So facebook.com/ManiaMandla. I would be most grateful. And to you, Dr. Oliver T. Reid, I want you to stay on here after we stop the live stream, but I want to thank you publicly for being here, for sharing your gift, and for sharing your light with everyone and some of your story, especially that poem. I can't wait to see it again and, and really digest, a lot of the things that you said. Thank you for dropping your nuggets.
Well, let me say this. Okay. I'll be remiss not to thank you for your greatness. And what I love about you is the consistency through all the years and just being who you are, an authentic message. So I really appreciate you. You're an amazing person. And listen, I don't see how you amaze me with just how you're able to just be who you really are, the light that beams. And so I just want to say thank you for being who you are. And the sky's the limit for you. So thank you for having me on.
Aw, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I know that was from the heart. So much love. I appreciate it. All right. So stay tuned. You all, if you have any questions, get with them. milkwritingsystem.com. I'll see y'all on Thursday, where we'll be here with the one and only Satori Seals. So we'll see y'all then. Take care, everyone.